the 15 Things blog post we shared earlier this year, which I'll also link in chat once I'm done getting things rolling here. And that will address actually many of the questions that came into the forums. A lot of you were really interested in hearing the status on what some of those projects were doing and how things were coming together there. Then we'll go into the questions from the forums and then open things up towards the end, provided there's time, which we should have, so don't worry. With that, I want to welcome Grumpy Linden, who is our Senior Director of Product. Over there on the far end from me, in the middle we have Patch Linden, who is our Senior Director of Product Operations. And here to my left we have Oz Linden, who is Senior Director of Engineering. So lots of senior directors with us this morning, which is awesome. And this is their first tag team town hall. So with that, I'll hand it over if you want to share some updates on the items discussed in the 15 Things to Celebrate blog post.
Oz, I think you had a thing to say because you raised your hand.
No, I was just slow getting my gestures loaded. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning. We are going to hand this off back and forth, but we kind of grouped the 15 things that were in our blog post into groups, starting with the one that's all done, because that's pretty easy. We certainly did lower mainland costs. We are super pleased with the response that we've gotten, both word of mouth response and the numbers that we see. Resident-owned mainland is at rates that we haven't seen in quite some time, and overall we just hear a buzz of excitement and are very happy with it. We're very glad you all are taking advantage of it. We also obviously doubled the mainland tier with the two things working together to achieve those results. Also, remember that Animesh thing we promised? Well, it shipped yesterday to production. It is out on the grid. The viewer is in release, and we are eagerly awaiting updates to third-party viewers as well. We are quite excited about it. Of course, as you know, to those of you who've been watching the marketplace, we have been making a number of updates and a lot of long requested features, including wish lists and favorites and a ton of bug fixes and some cleanup as well. And work continues at a pace where we're having trouble keeping up with the developer just writing the release notes. So quite exciting. There's still a ton more work to do, and we're looking forward to getting things into good shape again. And of course, lastly, there have been a lot of games and experiences. Patch, you want to take this one?
Sure. You know, we've put out quite a few different things. We've updated the glitches for the grid hunt. The Linden Realms updates went out. Yeah, which has been really cool. We've got a couple of other things that are kind of rolling around in the background too that you know, we're always kind of doing improvements on. So lots of fun stuff kind of happening out there, and we've got more stuff coming for winter too.
Yay! I'm looking forward to it. Then there's this batch of things that are currently in progress, starting with EAP, which I know there's a lot of excitement about, and we internally are also super excited about it. On one hand, we can't wait to share with you all the things that are happening like on a day-by-day basis, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that there's a nice batch of stuff and we're not just putting out little bit by little bit by little bit. So it's coming soon. Auctions. had gone out with the updates. We discovered some issues. We took them offline, and we are slowly working to. Well, we're working fast. They're coming out slowly in a controlled way, so that we make sure that we're doing everything right. Because it's a system that takes your money and hands out land, and that's important. Soon, though, and we are certainly looking forward to the next stage, which will be resident-to-resident auctions. Although, to be honest, we expect that resident-to-resident auctions will be coming early next year. I don't think that's we are aiming for this year anymore. This is unfortunate. I know we said in our 15th year is when we want to do all of these things, but the realities of working on many projects all at the same time and general slipping deadlines, unfortunately, mean that some of these projects stretch out into the next year, as I will soon have to repeat for several other things. Themed learning islands. We talked about doing some themed onboarding experiences for our new users, and we've been testing those. The results have been very interesting to see, and they have given us a lot of ideas for what to try next. Unfortunately, because we want the experiment results to be clean, we can't talk about them a ton. But we are definitely working on the various ways that the onboarding experience can be better for our new residents. Bakes on Mesh is getting very close. Oz, perhaps you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, well, that's we just did a deploy that had a few rough spots of the last major piece of infrastructure that needed to be updated for that. So expect a project viewer update soon, and we encourage people to give it a try so that we can shake out any bugs before it gets into the default viewer that everybody gets. But it's coming together. We'll probably have a couple more updates to the deploys, and I expect that the viewer will go through a couple of revisions, but we're making very good progress on it, and I think it'll be a nice feature. Simplify some aspects of pressing your avatar. And then I think I'd just as soon grab the next one, which is improved performance. We've actually had a whole series of projects, and there are a couple more still in flight that are designed to improve performance. We're revising some of our rendering code. We're working on a complete redo of the viewer's texture caching system, which we think is looking very good. Those will be out in viewers shortly. We've done some things with region crossings. We'll end up finding an opportunity to talk about some of that further down, since it's a hot topic. And we've got a few more projects in the wings that are focused primarily on improving the performance of some aspect. Try to pick the ones I'm least happy about if we can. But it's going to be an ongoing effort. We're always trying to do something about performance somewhere. And then I think that brings us to the group of things that we talked about in the announcement and have not actually been able to roll out. So top on that list is Linden Homes. Patch, you want to?
Yeah, so Linden Homes. We promised to bring improvements to these this year. I think we're going to be a little behind, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but we're working on some really cool things, especially for those of you who have been following me in the forums and stuff and my Flickr posts and teaser images and things. You've already kind of caught a glimpse of some of what's coming. So we're really excited about this particular project. A lot of hard work going into it. The moles are really, really busy. We might have some more to open up to show folks maybe just before the end of the year, but then we'll be getting pretty close to probably revealing more going into the new year. I think the next one up is more premium, more value for premium members. Grumpy, is that you?
Sure, yeah. We are doing several projects that have to do with premium membership and premium value. We're super excited about them. Parts of them are going to roll out little by little, and then a large chunk will come later on. Certainly one of the biggest changes for premium members had been doubling the mainland allowance. But we also have changes coming for merchants and for creators. And one of the things you may have noticed is that premium members get 2 Animesh attachments and not just 1. So that's a pretty cool touch as well. And by the way, we're very excited to see the response that we've seen from you, and premium membership has going very strong. So thank you all. We appreciate it. The return of last names. We are working on it. As with many things in Second Life, it turns out things are complicated. I remember the first time many moons ago when I said, let's figure out what we have to do to bring back last names. And some people who had been here longer than me kind of and smiled. And some other people were like, oh, it's very easy. There's just this thing. We just flip this one bit and then last names are back. And of course, it's never that easy. So there are a lot of things in the background that we need to upgrade. And to make sure that everything still works for all of you in order to bring back last names. We're working on those things. It's looking like it's going to be closer to, the second quarter of next year, although obviously we commit to no dates whatsoever. And also, I know there are a ton of questions about pricing and how things will work precisely. And obviously, we do our best to answer exactly how things will work. Some of these things might change as we get closer to the ship dates because of the difficulties or particularities of how things are implemented. But I know there's a lot of interest in how much this will cost. Can't give you the exact number, but it's on the order of a few months of premium membership. So the price is not impossible, but it is also not something that is throwaway money. That moves us along to grid-wide experiences.
Yeah, so we're going to make it possible for people to get a grid-wide experience. The difference between, just to be clear, the difference between a grid-wide experience and the experiences that most creators can get now is just that today the experiences that a premium member can create must be explicitly enabled on the land before they'll work and be effective. And a grid-wide experience will work by default unless the landowner blocks it. They disable that specific experience. That's the only difference. There's nothing that says you automatically are added to an experience or anything like that. That's a completely different quality. So we have a little bit of work left to do. Grid-wide experiences work now. Lindens have created some that we use for different purposes. There are a few others that were created during the beta period as part of testing, and they work. But we need to set up the system for assigning them to people and giving you a way to get them and so forth. So look for those next year, possibly around the same time that we do the changes to premium, because there's some overlap there. So, again, we don't really have a date. That one hasn't been something that we've had to do very much work for. We just do need a little bit of accounting to add. So that's coming. And then the last one, which is a huge project, is the migration to the cloud. We have been busily building a lot of infrastructure. We've made an enormous amount of progress on that. At this point, very little of the operational parts of Second Life that you use, that are not test systems, is in the cloud now. So all of the questions that came in that have something to do with why is this broken is it because you moved it to the cloud? Basically, the answer is no, because we haven't yet. But we're beginning to do that. We're moving services carefully, one at a time, out to the cloud, and we're making progress. It's going to be a big project. The goal for this year, for the coming year, is to get things moved without you being able to tell that we did it. So that's the big goal, high-level goal. We're not going to change the way anything works. We're just going to change where we run the processes. That's a sufficiently difficult goal, and then we'll worry about actually exploiting some of the things that the cloud gives us the ability to do after we've got that all running. So that's a big effort, and hopefully you won't notice that it's happening. So we'll see.
Great. I think that covers all of the 15, although I did want to loop back on a couple of those, maybe through the questions some other questions that we received in the forums. One of which actually goes back to the last names question. Grumpy and I actually, I remember when you said, hey, why don't we just do it? Let's flip the switch. And I was like, you will break my forums. Don't you dare break my forums. And we did have actually some very specific questions about last names. I don't know if we wanted to touch on those here this morning as we dive into the questions we received in the forums, or if that's something maybe we want to respond to via the forums and/or as we get closer to.
I think we can cover them quickly. Let's just run through that.
All right. Let's see here. We did actually have a question from Little Me Jewel, which was answered, and that was just about the general sort of timeline and idea of when that out, which I believe Grumpy you addressed already. And then I'm sorry about this. It's Eliana Sue was asking about once you change your name, you're stuck with it until you change it again, and it always must be new as they understand it. But in the town hall meeting, their understanding was that Ebe had mentioned that they will be able to reapply their own older names. So she was a little bit confused and was wondering if that was actually going to be possible or not. Because if not, then of course people will be a little bit more careful, I guess, about considering what they change their names to, and a little bit less impulsive about it. Is that correct? Or
we certainly hope that people are careful about what they change their names to. These changes take a while to propagate, and these are not intended to be display names, which are fairly easy to change. So this kind of falls into the sort of thing that we may end up changing last minute. As it stands right now, it should be possible for you to go back to a name that you yourself had before, although obviously nobody else can take that name. Whether that cost is easy enough for you to swallow or not, I mean, it's a personal thing. And as we said before, name changes will require a premium membership.
Great. Frederick F. was curious that if we were going to be taking suggestions for last names to add into that pool.
We absolutely will. We're looking forward to it. And that will be a little bit closer to when we actually roll things out.
We don't want to have to pick them all, so.
Well, we kind of do. I mean, we've been making lists for the past few years.
Lindens get to contribute some too, but we will open it up so that people can ask for things, and we'll.
Awesome. I think that covers most of the last name stuff that we had. I think there were some similar questions around sort of changing names back and forth and being able to revert back to older last names, which I think you did touch on, Grumpity. So I think last names for now is covered, but there's definitely going to be more information to come on that as we get closer. And then the other piece, this I don't think was brought up in the 15 things discussion. However, it is something I know we hear about a lot, and I was going to bounce this over to you, Oz, which is we did receive a lot of questions about region crossings and if there were any notable updates or information on potential improvements there. So I didn't know if you had something you wanted to share or anything to update us on.
One of the things that we are pretty much always working on some part of is region crossings. As a measure of the complexity of it, my most senior simulator developer often says that if there's one thing he could go back in time to change, it would be the decision to allow region crossings. There's an enormous amount of information that has to be passed around in this very complicated three-way handshake that happens between your viewer and the two regions when you're crossing, and it gets even more crazy when you're crossing around a corner or something where you can do two region crossings very, very close together. It's just a really hard problem. So while I understand the frustrations for everybody that happen when something goes wrong at a region crossing, that's something we're pretty much always spending time on. We did do one large focused project this year on trying to clean up problems with attachments coming off at region crossings. And according to the measurements we can make that are grid-wide, we did make things significantly better. We're not completely done, and we've got more ideas about how to make that even more robust than it is now. So that's something we're just constantly engaged with, and that we hope to make it a lot better.
Awesome. Thanks for addressing that. Like I said, we did receive quite a few questions about that. And another one we did receive some follow-up questions too that we did cover a little bit here is more in your realm, Patch, and that's with the Linden homes. I'll try to condense some of these questions as I think you did address part of it. The first one I have is from Divine Teardrop. I think they were asking for a general sort of update on this, which we did. But they and also Inara had questions about underwater homes or water homes, if that was going to be a possibility for people who live in and under the water, if that was something we had considered. And also, Divine was asking about whether or not there might be an ability for people to sort of select their homes in a way where they could sort of move in with their friends or move in the neighborhood of their friends and sort of pick places nearby, if those were some things that were being considered and or part of this next update to Linden Homes.
Yeah, so we're going to actually have a good handful of different types of homes to choose from. Currently there's kind of like 4 genres, and we actually have like a dozen now that we're working on. The other kind of cool thing with the new system is that on like your one single parcel that you'll have, you will actually have a good handful of homes in design available to you that fit that genre. And the way the continent's being built out is there's areas and stuff that kind of roll into each other thematically that actually present themselves in theme with that particular genre of home or home type. And I say home type because yes, there are different types of homes. And some of those could be watery, some of them may not be, some of them could be land-based, etc. So we actually have a really good spread of some exciting different things that are going to present themselves when the time is ready for us to kind of reveal that.
Great, thank you. And I think there was one final question, should be quick, from Marth Coberts on Linden Homes that was asking if Linden Homes would be the 1024 meter size.
So, yeah, I mean, I might as well just kind of yank this rabbit out of the bag now. You will actually be able to select from different size parcels.
Surprise!
Surprise!
Surprise! I didn't even know that. All right, cool. You heard it here first, folks. Thanks for the update on that patch. I know we also kind of a little bit touched on Marketplace, I believe, the Marketplace features that have been being worked on. Some of you may or may not be familiar with. We actually received quite a fair amount of questions around the Marketplace. There is, I think, Grumpity, this probably falls into your realm, so we'll go through these as quickly as possible, but I know that you have some insight on a few of these. Yep. Cindy Evanier asked if there would be a way, or if we had considered a way or the ability to add a manager to Marketplace stores so that people could potentially have help with their Marketplace businesses. And if so, if there was a timeline on what that might be.
Why, that is a great timing for this question, because I have a meeting tomorrow where I'll get to see a demo of how this could work. So yeah, there are some plans to make that happen, and I think we should be able to share that feature with you soon. I'm pretty excited, along with a ton of other Marketplace updates that are happening. This is one. By the way, this, along with a ton of other things that we're doing on the Marketplace, came to us through Jira. Jira is the place you want to go to give us ideas and suggestions for how Second Life should work. If you file a feature request, Jira, it will be triaged by a group that has representatives from across the board who are able to think about both how usable this feature would be and how feasible this feature would be. And we all get to talk about your idea and suggestion. And then it actually gets worked on pretty fast if we find that it's easy enough for us to do. It's better than suggesting things on the forums, and it's even better than suggesting things at Townhall, because we might have, holes in our memory, and if it's not written down in a Jira, things just fall off the table.
Yes,
Was that a convincing plug?
I think that Grumpity dreams in Jira.
and it's worth saying that one of the reasons why we don't publish or commit to dates far in advance, more than things that are essentially immediate, is that we're constantly looking at what's coming in Jira and what is queued up in Jira and changing our priorities. Right? We see an opportunity to get something really, really cool done that's not difficult. We stop something else, or we slow it down, or we fail to start another thing that we otherwise had planned to do. We're pretty agile in our scheduling. We move what we're doing around in order to try to have the most impact in the least time. And Jira is how we keep that straight. So if you're not in there, what you're looking for is not in there, it's not going to have a very good chance of getting work done.
All right. So yes, Jirify that stuff. To go back to Marketplace, also I imagine some of these may fall under that same category of making sure that it is a feature request in Jira. But Anara Pay actually had a question, sort of if we had any immediate plans to do some sort of marketplace cleanup, things, involving potentially removing inactive listings and that sort of thing. I think this may be something that has been mentioned in the past. And I believe Inara was sort of looking for an update on that, if we had any needs to share on that front. Is that something you would be able to fill us in on, Grumpity?
Why, yes. We have indeed started the cleanup. Only merchants, and there was indeed an update on the blogs, and it was cross-posted to the merchants forum. This is the update. We did start the cleanup. Merchants who had not logged into Second Life or the marketplace in 5 years or more were affected, and we only unlisted items which have not sold within 2 years. So even if the merchant hadn't been in Second Life in 5 years, but their items had sold within the last 2 years, we haven't touched them yet. We have amazingly, and we're quite pleased with ourselves as a result, I think, haven't heard any problems as a result of that cleanup. We plan on moving those brackets a little bit and getting into things that still haven't been touched in quite some time, but little by little adjusting so that things that do come up on the marketplace are more recent and more likely to be supported. However, we're aware that there may be merchants who are no longer active in Second Life, but whose items are still very popular and useful, and that is why we're looking at what has and not touching those. I hope that answers Inara's question.
Yeah, I believe you did, and you touched on the point of whether there would be updates on these types of changes so that people don't freak out.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like, yeah, we've definitely been making sure to communicate that, and we'll continue to do so.
We do our best to avoid panic,
yes.
Although we can't always avoid drama.
I'm relatively certain most of the folks in our audience are familiar with our blog, but for those of you who aren't, that's definitely a great source to add to your RSS feeds and or your reading materials. We definitely update there about a lot of these things. Primarily the featured news blog, but also tools and tech. That's an area we get a lot of requests from this group in particular to post updates about these types of changes. Make sure you check that out. A couple more about Marketplace we'll get through real quick here. One from Callum Merriman, who was asking, he was actually asking Dakota, but I think he meant you, Grumpity, if there would be the potential for adding filters for the Marketplace, such as limited quantity items. Prime example being something. And secondary to that, Pixel Sideways had a lot to say about the Marketplace that was based on feature suggestions such as keyword spam, and if there would be an ability to exclude merchants from search results who maybe potentially were prone to using keyword spam. And they also felt there should be a report button for keyword spam, and that there'd be ways to filter out words like gotcha and demo. Grumpity, did you want to touch on those points?
Sure. So first, Dakota is great and powerful indeed, and she holds a ton of knowledge on the Marketplace. Good news! We now have a gotcha category on the Marketplace, and hopefully it will help a bit. There are already several, either tens of thousands or by now hundreds of thousands of things in the gotcha category. So certainly we see it being used. Yes, indeed. And that number had been rapidly growing. Gotcha does indeed clog up searches. We're all aware of that. The best thing to do on the marketplace to filter out specific words is to use Boolean search. So you could type like this or like this in the search field. Of course, if the merchant who did the listing went through several rounds of efforts to avoid a filter like this, then that may not help. And if you need a little bit of help understanding how to use Boolean search, because there's more to Boolean than just using not, there is a help over keywords. There's a little question mark next to it that will link you to a help article on Boolean search, which is new. And sorry, got distracted for a second and didn't address the second half of the question. The second half of the question leads me to do my pitch for Jira feature requests. Once again, there were a ton of good ideas in the forum thread, and a lot of these would receive a positive and interested response in the feature request triage, where we could read through them, discuss different aspects of the suggested features and how we could implement them or whether we could implement them, and then triage them appropriately to the right team and prioritize them in that team's queue. Please use feature requests.
And I think the only other part of that, which was a surprise to me, was that I think that somebody had suggested there be a way to report keyword spam, and which, as far as I recall, as long as I can remember, that feature is actually there. You are able to report a listing for keyword spam.
That's right. You can flag the listing.
Yes, flag the listing. So, there you go.
I do believe that part of that request is to be able to flag the merchant altogether, and that is not a feature that exists.
Right, and should be Jirified as a feature request. All right, then we'll move along to some more general questions around performance, and or let's see, we also have some miscellaneous feature sort of requests, and again, this goes back to making sure people follow up by Jirifying your feature request as well, but we'll talk through a couple of these here today. Let's take a look and see what we got. We got a lot of stuff here. A couple from Loki Elliott, who wanted to know if we will ever consider looking into improving groups features, and also wanted to get our take on place pages. I believe, Grumpity, you were going to talk about these, but maybe Oz, you have something you wanted to add.
Well, just quickly, the answer to all questions, will Linden Lab ever do something for any value of something? The answer is maybe, because ever is a very long time. I don't think anyone 12 years ago would have been able to predict that we would ever do many of the things we've done in the last few years. So there's just that. We really don't know what we'll be doing 3 years from now. We really don't know at all. So we have some ambitions, but it's coming. Groups features, there are certainly some things we have in mind to do to improve the performance of groups, but it's difficult to sort of answer an open-ended question, or will we improve groups? Improve them how? What is it you want improved about them? We know that there are some things about them that don't work as well as we'd like them to. Those are certainly things we'd like to improve. But adding features to groups, which features? That's kind of an important. See the earlier plug about putting new feature requests in Jira.
All right. And then the question about place pages. Is that you, Grumpy, or Oz, or Loki have asked?
Yes, we've all heard of place pages. We built them. So yeah, I'm not sure what the intent of that was. For any of you out there in the audience who haven't heard of place pages, if you own land and you check the show land in search box, you get you automatically have a place page for that land, and you can edit it and make a web page that's searchable from the internet, and you can publicize how cool it is and why people should come see it. And we encourage you to do that.
All right. We did have a question going back to premium perks. This one came in from Scale Dagger. And they were asking if there may be any chance of a new premier tier perk being the ability to pay for more group slots. We were talking about groups a minute ago. Over and above the 60 that premium members are currently getting. As anybody who knows who's either a shopper or a merchant or participates in a lot of events, those slots can fill up pretty quickly. So I guess their question would be, would that be something that we would consider as part of maybe a tiered perk through premium, basically being able to unlock even more group slots?
We are, as mentioned before, working on a number of features for premium members, and we're well aware of the interest in adding more groups and always adding more groups. It is something that is definitely on the list. How exactly additional group slots will be available will be something we'll talk about a little bit closer to the premium restructuring that's coming. But yes, there will be opportunities once that's coming out. One of the complexities of adding more groups, of course, is that our groups feature includes so much and is used for so many different things. And that means that everyone who has there's a lot of load on the various systems that support all the things that group. So we have to try. It's not just an arbitrary limit that we decide to throw in because we want to limit you on. Is that fair? I understand it's a bit of a non-answer right now, but the answer is yes. We are aware of the need for more groups and the desire for more groups, and we're working on ways to make that happen.
I did see some
for premium.
Back in my day, we had 10, and we were happy with it. Uphill
That's
both
right.
ways in the snow. All right. Well, I have a couple questions I wanted to bring over to you, Patch, that came in through the forums as well. One of which was, what does SSP stand for? And that came from Cheek Aeon. I don't know if you wanted to address that.
You know what? Sure. I might as well, let this cat out of the bag too. Is everybody ready? Brace yourselves.
All right, we're braced.
SSP stands for Super Secret Project.
There you go.
and I can't take the credit for making it up. Unfortunately, Dee, who's no longer here, she's the one who actually came up with it. So the credit goes to her for naming the project SSP.
Awesome. Breaking news right here. Excellent. I think this one also actually is also for you, Patch. I think so. Blush Braven. Hey, Blush. I think I saw you in the audience earlier. Was asking about the large amounts of currently abandoned mainland parcels in the interior areas that are landlocked with no access to roads or waterways. Do we have any plans for renovating those areas to make them more appealing to possible land purchasers? I guess their thing is that many of those areas seem plagued by large expanses of granite textures that do not scale well. Have we considered updating those textures as well?
Yeah, actually, so we're always kind of running around improving, various little areas and places on the mainland. The land ops team in particular, they run around all day long and clean up the mainland and work on it and stuff like that. And then of course the moles and stuff doing content creation, like right now they're really heavily involved in, several big projects and stuff, but they also have kind of these parallel smaller projects and stuff to do those types of tasks. So we're always running around doing things like making little updates and improvements to the info hubs and roads and infrastructure and things in various places. And we are actually, one of the projects that we have slated for next year is to actually look at the textures. That's a pretty big thing for us though, so we have to be very careful with it, and I think I spoke about this at SL15B as well. I can't just like with one big brush stroke change all of the mainland textures, and that creates like this big shock across the mainland of night and day difference. But we are actually considering kind of resourcing and reallocating all of the textures and stuff like that, and doing some updates to kind of bring them up to today's standard.
Awesome. I think Ethelwine actually had a bit of a similar question about sort of, just general ideas about improvements to mainland, but they were also curious if there would be parcels next to roads and waterway, or sorry, they were asking if there would be more availability of parcels next to waterways and roads, and other ways of improving the road system. Do we have anything planned or currently in the LDPW projects to work on mainland upgrades and some?
Yeah, again, like I mentioned, we're always looking at all of the infrastructure and roads, and one of the very big heavy focuses that we have, even going into the new Linden Homes projects and stuff like that, is a lot of infrastructure and really good roads and things for people to travel around on vehicles and stuff like that, and waterways. I'm not gonna say anything else there, but yeah, lots of stuff to come with that. And then of course, we're always looking at like the SLRR, because I've seen that mentioned a couple of times in the crowd now and stuff. I actually have a mole who's dedicated to working on the SLRR now. Squeaky, if you haven't seen him, he's probably running around in the crowd somewhere, as a matter of fact. But he's specifically responsible for that. So a lot of you have had like switch requests and stuff. He's been taking care of those now. So yeah, anything that SLRR related needs or even road needs and stuff like that, he's been working on. And yeah, we're probably going to look at making update passes there over the next year, hopefully, as we also kind of get Linden Homes and stuff like that going to kind of bring that stuff up to speed.
Great to hear. And last but not least on that front, of course, Una Lunagat wants to know, will Homestead Regions be enhanced with more LI in the near future?
Maybe. I don't know.
All right.
It is something we thought about. And we do think about that stuff all the time.
Yes.
But it's also the sort of announcement that we don't make in advance.
Right. On that note, actually, let me jump back over to Grumpity. Callum Merriman had another question that came in through the forums asking, outside of fixes for security, why does the lab mask so much, I believe this, of its work behind, quote, internal fixes in the weekly maintenance change logs that they're allowed to see? That was a nice segue.
Yeah. Because there are things that we do not talk about ever, and then there are things that we do not talk about until we're ready to talk about them. I mean, like, what fun would it be if Patch right now sat here and was like, all right, so the SSB regions are totally not ready, but here are all the details about this thing that we're going to be building for the next 2 months. And then when it rolls out, you totally won't care because we already told you all about it. And then you'll just go, well, it's not exactly the way you told us all about it. While we have certainly shied away from the approach of going away for 2 years and building a thing and not sharing with our residents what we're working on, there are incremental things that we do in order to prepare work before we're ready to share it with you. However, a lot of the internal fixes are things that really are security fixes, or internal fixes. And while we continue to post those because we post those simulator release notes on a regular basis, a lot of times there's just nothing public we can. Because once things are public, it's not just you, Callum Merriman, who is reading them, but everybody else who access to the internet who is reading them.
A pretty high percentage of them are security fixes. So it's not. I mean, it's one of the activities that we include in almost every simulator update is making some form of griefing or other potential problem more difficult or hopefully impossible. So that's a thing that we're just having to do all the time. And so a pretty high percentage of them are, and because we don't roll out fixes everywhere on the grid all at once, those release notes appear when a change gets into an RC channel. We don't want to say, well, we blocked the ability to mess up a region in the following way. Well, that would only apply in that RC, so we'd be advertising that you can mess up regions on the rest of the grid in the following way, right? So we really can't put details about some of these things into the change logs. Rest assured that internally we have ones that help us keep track of what we're doing and what we did and when we did it, but some of them just aren't appropriate to publish.
Great. We have about 5 or 6 minutes before we go into open questions. So let me see what else we got here we can breeze through. I know there were a couple of questions going back to, let's see, another one from Pixel Sideways was actually, they were asking about would there be more intuitive ways to handle group chat spam and reporting of spammers, such as a report avatar for abuse button on a user profile, or other ways to report chat spam?
Yeah, that question actually kicked off a very interesting set of discussions over the last week or so internally, and we are thinking about things we can do. I'm not going to, since we haven't made any firm decisions about that, I'm going to get into details now, but we're very much aware of the problem, and we'd like to do things about it.
Awesome. This question actually, I was surprised to see, but I think it's awesome that if we have these forums that we're able to, like these chats, that we're able to kind of quelch some of these rumors. That Menyan Azali said that they heard that we were phasing out classic avatars in 2020, and they wanted to know why, that they were being told they had to change to mesh by then, and it sounded like their SL avatar would no longer be usable. So, I thought this was a good opportunity for us to address that, and I think, Oz, you wanted to say something on that point.
Yeah, I wear a classic avatar, and I'm not changing, so we're not phasing them out. No, that's not why not, but we definitely have no plans to phase out classic avatars.
That's actually kind of why.
Yes. So yes, we wanted to definitely say I'm curious where that information was coming from, actually, because that certainly I don't think came from us. I am all about the mesh, but I know that we have many loyal classic retro vintage avatar aficionados amongst our community.
Yeah, and it as a broader general hint, if you hear anything that Linden Lab has a definite plan to do 2 years from now, it's not true. We don't make plans that far in advance.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even because it sounds ridiculous. It's just it's too far out.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I could see. I guess somebody did mention in chat that maybe it's the mesh avatar creators starting some panic. But yes, you've heard it here. Classic avatars are not going away, especially because Oz has no intentions of moving to mesh. Let's see. Let me see. Any questions? Again, I'm sorry that we didn't have time to get to everybody's question. We'll try to get one more in here before we open it up. I believe we actually touched on some of these. So let's talk about, let's see, Macrocosm Dragon asked about Linden water. I think this is probably your domain, Oz. And they were asking if they were curious about updating the water shader with maybe some minor enhancements, mainly around spectral normal effect, that kind of thing. Maybe allow to set a prim as LL water so pools, lakes don't have to do so much.
I am firmly convinced that this person is a secret alt of my lead rendering developer, because I got a very similar question from them. It's not inconceivable that we could do that. It probably won't happen very quickly. It might not happen in exactly that way, but improving various aspects of water rendering is actually something that we've talked about internally quite a bit. We have a lot of rendering changes in the pipeline, mostly part of the Enhanced Environments project. There are going to be a lot of very, very cool things you can do to make the world look better. You can experiment with that now on the project viewer. By all means, please do that. Getting some very cool little videos from what people are doing. But we've got a lot in the rendering pipeline. And among other things, we need to do a bunch of work to make sure that we can continue supporting Macs, even though Apple has announced that they're potentially going to be removing OpenGL support at some point in the future, and we have to be ready for that. So we've got a lot of projects in that stream. So anything that isn't really essential is probably not going to happen quickly. But that is one that he reminds me of frequently, so not inconceivable.
Awesome. So we are at the top of the hour now. We did get through a fair bit of the questions we had planned. We have a few that we didn't. Hopefully, maybe we can try to address some of those directly in the forum thread as we can. But we did want to give an opportunity to open things up to questions to our audience. Before we get to that, though, I just wanted to again thank Oz, Patch, and Grumpity for joining us this morning to answer questions, general and specific. I know we have some very technical questions that came in and lots of very specific things I'm interested in hearing. I am just ever amazed at how you guys are able to address such specific questions at the flip of a hat. So thanks again for joining us this morning. As we get into and roll into questions, I just have a couple of things to ask. We do have voice turned on, so if you would prefer to ask your question in voice, just consider that maybe don't want to talk over one another, won't be able to hear you. If you are typing your questions, I think the best way to handle this would be to send them directly to me, lost in local chat. See, things are scrolling by pretty quickly there. I'll try to read those out as we can, but also if you are able to ask on voice. I think that's it. Are you guys ready to open things up? I guess it's on the stage here.
Why not?
Yep.
Are you ready?
As ready as we'll be.
All right. Oh, my IMs are blowing up. But I do see Ven. Ven, did you want to go ahead and ask your question by voice? You said that you prefer to ask voice. Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great, go for it.
Do you guys have any plans at all for the Second Life Railroad?
Yeah, I just actually spoke about the SLRR. We're actually now actively working on it again. I've got a mole that's dedicated to doing so. We're going back through and kind of catching up on switch installations and stuff, making improvements. In fact, one of the projects that I've got on kind of the nearer term, longer roadmap is to actually completely redo the rail system. It needs to be completely rescripted. The rails themselves are broken and use 10 different ways of guiding trains and stuff like that. It's kind of a mess.
Yes,
because
that's the problem we're having out there.
And, things that have been piled on over the years. So expect to see some improvements and changes there. And of course, we'll talk about that more as we kind of get closer so that it doesn't catch anybody by surprise. And of course, we want to try to maintain as much backward compatibility as possible. But yeah, definitely it's on our roadmap.
It's just the switches I'm worried about because a lot of them are not working now.
Yeah, I'm actually not surprised.
Thank you so much, Pat.
We're aware of it. And if you ever do find switches with problems, please do report them to us.
Oh, we have before.
All right. I did receive a bunch of IM questions here. I'll try to get to as many of these as I can. But also, again, if you have a voice question, actually, that worked out well. If you want to ping me and let me know, and I'll just throw it over to you when we get to your question, that works as well. So it might be a little bit less chaotic, but too. So, Dracus was curious. Actually, the question I believe is, will we add an ability to apply permission filters to search in anyone?
Your voice dropped out for me for just a second there. So permissions in something.
Permissions to apply permission filters to searches in inventory.
Permission filters. Do we have any plans? No, I don't think so.
Feature request.
Feature request, and that actually falls into a category of feature request that is something I never want to lose track of, and Jessica out there in the audience is going to cringe when I say this, but in particular, if there are features that you really enjoy in a third-party viewer, you wish that the Linden viewer had them, they can be contributed. You should encourage third-party viewer developers to try to push their features upstream. The easiest kinds of features to import are sometimes ones that third-party viewer developers have done. We're working on a couple right now that are pretty neat. So can be done.
If there are Linden viewer users who have a feature they like in Forest and would like on the Linden viewer, follow Jira with us or with Linden Lab, and that way we'll know about it.
Yeah. So there we had.
And we're happy. Yeah, happy to contribute.
One of the other questions we had was area search from Firestorm. Why don't we do area search? Answer simple. We don't have that contribution. So that's one we probably would be happy to do. There are some things that third-party viewers do that we don't want to incorporate because it adds too much complexity or whatever. They're TV features, but there are lots more that we would be happy to do.
May I ask a question? I don't want to interrupt. I noticed as of late the BFS that does the virtual handshake between Logon and Second Life has become it's slowed down a great bit. Not just for laptop users. I'm seeing it a lot in the forums. Is there something can be done about that?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. What is it that's something about login?
The VFS that does the virtual handshake between your computer and Second Life has become a serious issue with a lot of users. Is there something can be done about that? Maybe you're not understanding me. I have
you said a sequence of letters that ended in AS, and I'm not recognizing it.
Oh, I believe the question is about the virtual handshake between logging in, between your login and SL, basically.
Oh, right. Well, there's a lot that has to happen at login time. Yeah, there's quite a lot that happens at login time. So we'd like to make it faster, but it's not clear that it's an easy thing to do. Most of the time there is actually taken up with loading your inventory. So if you've got if you want to make login faster, one of the things to do is throw things away, and then empty your trash. The other thing is don't have tens of thousands of things in a single folder. Make nested folders. That actually speeds things up. But yeah, that's something we'd like to improve.
Great.
I hope I sort of addressed that.
I think we covered it. Actually, I'm sorry. Could you? I think that was you, Moonlight. Could you mute your mic, please? We can hear you typing.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Sometimes I forget to toggle my off and on as well. Actually, I have an interesting question here from Kelly Wanderer that came through IMs. They had a bunch of questions. I may get back to some of the earlier ones, but the one that I thought was of interest here is for you, Grumpity. Since you were talking about some of the improvements to Marketplace and cleaning up listings, I think that originally a question from Anar. Removing items that have not sold in 2 years. Their question is this: when Bakes on Mesh comes out, wouldn't that be a renewed demand for layered skins? Therefore, some of those items that maybe haven't sold in a while would become popular again.
If the merchant hasn't logged in 5 years and their items have not sold in the last 2 years, even the advent of Bakes on Mesh doesn't justify it to us to keep those items around, especially as we want to the current and active merchants to have the ability to have their products be more visible. And also, we want people doing searches on the marketplace to see more relevant results and more recent products, more supported products out there. Obviously, there's a trade-off. It's possible that during one of the quote-unquote purges, we're going to remove something or unlist something that may have been of value. The good news is if the merchant wanted to bring it back, all they would need to do is log in and relist that item.
All right, let's see here. Another question from Kelly was to patch. They really like their Linden home. Will they have to move? And to clarify, so Linden homes can change house model on a specific parcel. Is this via a reser like Horizons? Will it allow for a slate of... Uh-oh.
I caught actually everything right but the tail end of the questions.
I think that they're basically just asking, will it be allow for a blank slate of land? Will they have to move? Will it be like
They will
Horizons?
not have to move. It will not be a blank slate of land. It will be a reser system like what's in Horizons.
Awesome, thank you. I apologize. I'm sorry if my voice has started to...
That's okay. For some reason, like your mic cut off right at the end.
Yeah. All right. And they also, follow-up question, they said, not asking for old premium gifts to be re-released, but since there are premium-only perks, Airport, Boat Dock, Racer Gulch, driving, have we considered placing reserves or making available vehicles at those places to demo some of the items that we've created in the past at those facilities?
Hey.
I hadn't given any thought. I'll think about it. We have a lot of content that we've produced over the years that we could maybe make available again at some point, especially if it was premium only content in those places.
All right, let's see. What have we got here? Some of these questions are probably not best for this group. I know Hotshot had a question about whether we were considering promoting in new areas such as Asia, markets like that. This group specifically may not be involved in some of those decisions and our conversations, although probably involved in some way. But we are definitely always looking at new audiences to reach out to, for sure. So,
yep.
Let's see. Did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, sorry.
We do have an active Asian community in Second Life, and yes, absolutely, we're always looking to expand. One of the things we are hoping will get better for our communities halfway across the globe with the move to AWS is hopefully we will be able to reduce some of the lag that they experience. Obviously, no promises, and this is kind of a long-term hope. But fingers crossed, this will help those communities also attract more people that they know.
All right. Another question. Actually, I think this maybe was one that came up in the forums, but we didn't get time to get to. But then I just had Slick ask me if there was any headway being made with the official Linux viewer, especially with all the new features coming down the line.
Well, we announced it's a couple of years ago now that work on the Linux viewer was essentially going to be done by the community, that we would accept contributions to get it working again from Linux developers out there who are willing to make contributions. We've not gotten many. So while it would be nice to get that going again, it's not something I can dedicate very much of our limited engineering resources to. And there are Lindens that are not happy about that too, but the whole philosophy of open source is that you contribute your effort is why it's free, and I've been really quite disappointed in the lack of response to our call for help. So no, we're not doing much work on it, and I certainly can't promise any particular results.
All right. Let's see. We did ask that question already. Let's see. I think this ties back to a question from Mandel Solano around sort of the new user experience in social islands specifically, and if we had any ideas around ways in which we are planning to iterate and or improve that experience for new users. I don't know if anybody here has some thoughts on that they wanted to share.
I'm sorry, I cut off your part of the question.
If they had they're asking basically if we have any plans for improving new user experiences on places like Social Island. And their follow-up question to that was, again, going back to people asking about trusted groups or help groups for onboarding. I'm pretty sure this is one that Ebe addresses almost every time he's here, but I didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on that they want to share.
Certainly. We are constantly thinking about how we can improve onboarding experiences. We've got several projects lighting up right now and things we're thinking about. We do understand that griefing is a problem on social islands. For better or for worse, that is part of the freedom that Second Life provides, and and part of the attraction that Second Life holds for some people, and we understand and acknowledge that, and would like to redirect that energy away from social islands and onboarding experiences. There may be some more concrete announcements coming in the next few months.
All right. Yeah, sorry for the delay here. Just try to go through all of these IMs and find questions for you all. Let's see. Dracus asked again about marketplace listings. Is there a possibility of adding release dates to products on the marketplace to see when an item was released and or last updated? So I think that's on to display that to the consumer side.
Wow, what a great feature request in Jira.
Feature request. Put it in Jira, Dracus. Great ideas. All right, ask that question about social islands.
Man, our feature request team, triage team, is going to be really busy the next few weeks.
Yes. I don't know if this falls into that same category, but Waylon Gothley Blackthorn asked if they're where they can make a suggestion relating to the SLRR and possible expansion.
Anything that comes in as a Jira feature request or bug report that is related to how land is laid out or any land features, we just route them internally to the team that does that. So part of Patch's team. So that's a fine way to do it.
Yeah, and that is the best way.
All right. Let's see what else we have. There are a couple of questions here again that maybe are not really directly related to this specific group, so I apologize if I don't get to your question. Let me see. I think we just kind of touched on this one a little bit. Moonlight was asking if we'd considered employee resources or an employee group to help newcomers through the initial process of onboarding, as well as controlling issues in world. Know what more we can say on that, if there's anything we wanted to add. I do know that we have a really fantastic support group who are very, 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 very busy dealing with a lot of the bad stuff, the griefer stuff. In fact, we have some folks here today helping us out quietly behind the scenes.
And they hold a user group, and the link is in chat.
Excellent.
Kristen runs a tight ship user group right here, and I'm sure she will be thrilled to hear your ideas and suggestions and grievances.
Yes. Ven wanted to ask, are we hiring PHP developers, and if so, where can they apply?
Help.
lindenlab.com/careers is where we post all of our available openings. At the moment, I don't know what Sansar has got posted. We don't have any openings for web developers in Second Life. I don't know what Sansar might or might not have, but lindenlab.com/careers is where we always post our job opening.
I wanted to relay one of the questions from the forum. It was, I actually don't know whether it was for all of us or just for Patch, but it was, what is Patch's favorite cheese?
Oh my.
Very important question.
Yeah, this is really important.
I couldn't let this forum close without it.
So my favorite kind of cheese, probably of all time, is a really good sharp Swiss. I love Swiss cheese. Is that mouse-like
Swiss
enough
cheese.
for everybody?
Yeah, it's a little mousy.
Well, now I've got to know what your favorite cheese is, Grumpity, if you have one.
Oh wow. I wasn't ready for that question to be turned around to me. There's this totally overpriced soft cheese called La Tour that I'm a huge fan of.
Awesome. And I guess now I've got to also ask Oz. Inquiry minds want to know. Favorite cheese.
I would say a great aged Gouda is just impossible to beat.
The Gouda.
All right, Ziola.
To make that joke that everybody saw coming.
Don't make the joke. Don't do it.
No, the Gouda. Oh gosh, like cheese is like next to tomatoes, cheese is my favorite. So that is a tough one for me, but I'm probably gonna go with Port Salute, which is one I've only seen at Trader Joe's, and they have it sometimes and not others. Pretty delightful. If you ever see it, y'all should give it a try. And on that very important note, I think we're going to wrap things up for the day, unless you guys had any last parting words you wanted to share with our community before we tie things up. We'll certainly do more of these in the future and get to more questions. And again, thanks for joining us this morning. Do you guys have anything you wanted to say, or are we kind of covered a lot of ground here today, so...
I honestly have to confess that I really enjoy doing these, and they're a lot of work and a lot of prep. Ton of people are helping make this happen behind the scenes and keep things running smoothly while we get to sit up here on stage and answer cheesy questions. Thank you all so much. I don't know that I should be calling everybody out by name, but it's very much appreciated. And all of our residents who make this happen, who write the questions, who come here, who don't mute their gestures despite repeated requests, we love and appreciate you all.
Yes, and I want to take an opportunity to thank everybody for giving me a panicky reason to change out of my Halloween costume, because I was still dressed in my Halloween costume before the show today. So yes, last minute wardrobe changes are always fun. But yeah, that said, unless Oz or Pat you to share parting words, I can see my mic putting out.
Keep bringing us the endless entertainment of being able to see how you use Second Life. I can't tell you how much it enriches the lives of all the Lindens to see the great stuff you do with the work that we spend our days doing. It really is. It really makes it special. So thanks.
Awesome. All right. Well, unless Pat, you had anything you wanted to share, I believe that's it for us today. Thanks again. I did see somebody mention the outfits thing, and yes, I definitely have lots of outfits saved, but I always end up wanting to try something new.
She definitely has lots of outfits.
Yes, and I do know how to use them, but I always end up wanting to try something new because I just bought some stuff, the night before or what have you. So actually, I just got all this last night when I was like, oh, I need something new to wear. Everything except the hair, I think. All right,
lovely.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for my question. See you on the railroad, Patch.
See you there.
Most delightful, my dear.
Did see a question fly by earlier about our hobbies. Everybody knows what my hobby is. I go shopping and play on the railroad and buy trains.